Awareness is the foundation of change, and when it comes to confidence, it is the absolute first step. You cannot silence negative self-talk until you recognize it for what it is. Most women don't even realize how often the voice in their head is tearing them down. It has become so normal, so automatic, that it runs in the background of your daily life like an old soundtrack you've stopped noticing. But here's the truth. That voice is shaping your reality. It is influencing your decisions, how you show up in a room, what opportunities you go after, and what you believe you're capable of. If you don't become aware of it, it controls you. Think about the last time you looked in the mirror and immediately thought about what you didn't like about yourself. Maybe it was your weight, your skin, your hair, or just the way you looked that morning. That thought might have seemed small, but it set the tone for how you carried yourself the rest of the day. That inner voice whispered, "You're not enough. You don't look good enough. Don't draw too much attention." Without awareness, you accepted those thoughts as truth. That is how negative self-talk steals confidence. Quietly, invisibly, and constantly. Awareness begins with slowing down enough to notice what's going on inside your head. Most people go through their days reacting automatically, never questioning their inner dialogue. You need to pause and listen. What do you say to yourself when you make a mistake at work? Do you call yourself stupid? Do you say, "Of course I messed that up. I always mess things up"? What about when you see someone who seems more successful or more confident than you? Does your mind instantly go to comparison? Do you say, "She has it all figured out. I'll never be like that"? These thoughts are not harmless. They shape your reality. And unless you bring them into the light, you cannot change them. Awareness is not about judgment. This is important. If you start to notice your negative self-talk and immediately beat yourself up for it, you're only reinforcing the same cycle. The goal is not to judge yourself for having these thoughts. The goal is to see them clearly, to notice them as they come up, and to understand they are not facts. They are habits. They are patterns. They are learned voices, often picked up from childhood, culture, or experiences where someone else's opinion became embedded in your brain. When you become aware of them, you realize they are not actually you. They are noise. Let's get practical. One powerful way to build awareness is to actually track your thoughts. For one day, carry a small notebook or use your phone and write down every critical thing you say to yourself. You will be shocked at the number of times you put yourself down without even realizing it. You'll notice patterns. Maybe most of your negative self-talk is about your body, or maybe it shows up around your work, or maybe it's when you're parenting, telling yourself you're not doing enough. The act of writing them down forces you to stop and notice. And when you see them on paper, you separate yourself from them. They're not swirling invisibly in your head anymore. They're just words, and that gives you power. Awareness also means paying attention to your triggers. Negative self-talk rarely comes out of nowhere. It's usually activated by certain situations. For example, maybe you always feel that critical voice when you walk into a meeting with your boss. Or maybe it shows up when you scroll through social media and see curated images of people's lives. Or maybe it's when you're tired, stressed, or overwhelmed. Knowing your triggers is a huge part of building confidence. When you know when that voice is most likely to show up, you can prepare for it. You can meet it head-on instead of letting it blindside you. Another layer of awareness is noticing how negative self-talk feels in your body. Confidence isn't just mental, it's physical. When you're caught in self-doubt, you might feel a pit in your stomach, tension in your shoulders, or a heaviness in your chest. These sensations are signals. Your body is telling you that your thoughts are pulling you into a state of fear or shame. By becoming aware of these physical cues, you can catch yourself even before the words fully form in your mind. You notice your chest tightening and think, I'm going into that old pattern again. That moment of recognition is everything. Why does this matter so much for confidence? Because confidence is not about never having fear or self-doubt. Confidence is about noticing those voices and choosing not to let them run your life. The person who appears unshakably confident is not someone who never has negative thoughts. It's someone who notices them and knows how to stop them from taking control. That ability starts with awareness. Let me give you a real example. Imagine you're about to speak up in a meeting. The negative voice comes in. Don't say that. You'll sound stupid. Everyone's smarter than you. If you're not aware, you'll accept that thought as fact and stay quiet. Later, you'll kick yourself for not speaking up, reinforcing the belief that you're not confident. But if you're aware, you notice the thought. You hear it and say, "Oh, there it is. That old tape again." That split second of recognition gives you a choice. You can decide, this is just a negative thought. It's not true. I'm still going to speak. That one act of awareness changes the outcome entirely. Awareness also pulls you out of autopilot. Most people live in autopilot, repeating the same patterns day after day. But when you become aware of your self-talk, you wake up. You're no longer drifting through life, letting your inner critic make your decisions. You're actively engaging with your thoughts, questioning them, and choosing new ones. That shift is the beginning of real confidence, because confidence comes from trust in yourself. And you cannot trust yourself if you're not even paying attention to the way you talk to yourself. Here's the hard truth. If you don't build awareness, your negative self-talk will always win. Because it's sneaky. It disguises itself as truth. It sounds like your own voice, and it will convince you to shrink, to stay quiet, to not take chances. But when you are aware, you shine a spotlight on it. And when something is in the light, it loses its power. This process of awareness is ongoing. You don't just wake up one day and stop all negative self-talk forever. It's like a muscle. The more you practice noticing, the stronger you get. Over time, you start catching it faster. What used to spiral you for hours or days, you can now stop in seconds. You'll hear the thought, recognize it, and choose differently. That's the power of awareness. It's the foundation for everything else that builds confidence. Without it, nothing changes. With it, everything does. When negative self-talk takes over, it speaks in absolutes. It says things like, "You always fail," or "You're never good enough," or "Everyone else is better than you." These words come across as truth because they're delivered in your own voice, and because you've rehearsed them for years, they feel familiar. But familiarity is not the same as truth. The voice of self-doubt thrives on exaggeration, distortion, and lies. If awareness is the first step, the next step is to challenge those lies and reframe them with facts, because confidence grows when you anchor yourself to evidence instead of letting your thoughts spiral unchecked. Reframing is not about blindly chanting affirmations that you don't believe. It's about replacing the false narrative in your mind with something rooted in reality. When you tell yourself, "I'm terrible at everything," that's not fact. That's an opinion, a judgment colored by fear. The evidence might show something completely different, that you've achieved things, that you've overcome challenges, that you've learned and grown through countless experiences. The act of reframing is taking that destructive statement, examining it closely, and asking, where is the proof? The brain loves evidence. It is constantly looking for patterns and confirmation. If you repeatedly feed it negative statements, your brain starts scanning your life for proof to back them up. You'll remember the one time you froze in a presentation, but forget the 10 times you spoke clearly and confidently. You'll obsess over the one rejection email, but ignore the fact that you've been hired, promoted, or praised multiple times before. Negative self-talk blinds you to reality by filtering your focus. Reframing with evidence takes that filter off. It forces you to look at the whole picture, not just the distorted version. Imagine this scenario. You make a mistake at work. Your inner voice says, "You're incompetent. You always screw things up." If you stop there, you accept that statement as truth. But if you use evidence, you challenge it. You ask yourself, Is that really true? Do I always screw up? What about the projects I finished successfully? What about the times my boss complimented me? What about the skills I've built over the years? The evidence shows you are not incompetent. You are human. You made a mistake like everyone does. The reframe thought might be, I made an error, but I've also delivered plenty of wins. This one mistake does not define me. That shift doesn't erase the mistake, but it puts it into perspective. And perspective is what restores confidence. Reframing with evidence requires practice, because your brain has been trained to default to criticism. It might feel awkward at first to argue with yourself, but think about it like being in a courtroom. Negative self-talk is the prosecutor trying to make a case against you. Awareness helps you realize the trial is even happening. Reframing with evidence makes you the defense attorney, standing up with facts to challenge the lies. You're not making things up. You're simply presenting the truth that your inner critic conveniently ignores. And when the truth is on the table, the negative voice loses its grip. One of the most powerful tools in reframing is keeping a record of your wins. Because when you're in the middle of self-doubt, it's hard to remember them. Confidence is built from repeated proof that you can handle life. Start a journal or a note on your phone where you write down every accomplishment, big or small. Did you handle a difficult conversation? Write it down. Did you finish a project even though you were nervous? Write it down. Did you show up to the gym when you didn't feel like it? Write it down. Over time, you build a library of evidence. Then, when your self-talk says, you can't do this, you pull out that library and say, actually, here are 50 times I've done something equally hard. That is not wishful thinking, that is fact. Another critical piece of reframing is recognizing the language of absolutes. Words like always, never, and everyone are red flags. When your inner voice says, you always fail, stop and ask, always? Is that true? Haven't I succeeded before? When it says, you're never good enough, ask, never. Haven't I been enough for friends, family, colleagues? When it says, everyone else is better than you, ask, everyone? Really? Can I think of examples where people have valued me, respected me, or even looked up to me? Breaking down absolutes with evidence disarms their power. They collapse under scrutiny because they are exaggerations, not truth. Reframing also means shifting focus from what you lack to what you bring. Negative self-talk is obsessed with deficits. It highlights where you fall short compared to some impossible standard. Evidence reminds you of your strengths, your progress, and your resilience. For example, instead of thinking, I don't know enough to start this business, you reframe with evidence. I may not know everything, but I've learned before. I can learn again, and I have skills and experiences that are valuable. That statement doesn't deny the challenge. It reframes it with truth, and that truth fuels action. Think about how this plays out in relationships. Negative self-talk might say, you're not lovable. Nobody really cares about you. That thought can spiral you into isolation and insecurity. But the evidence tells a different story. Think of the friends who've stood by you, the family members who've shown up for you, the coworkers who've relied on you. Even if you don't have a perfect network, there is proof somewhere in your life that you are valued. Bringing that evidence forward allows you to reframe the story. I am not unlovable. I have people who care for me, and I am worthy of love. That simple reframe shifts how you show up in connections, which strengthens your confidence in relationships. There's also a scientific angle here. Neuroscience shows that the brain doesn't distinguish well between imagined scenarios and real experiences. That means if you constantly feed it negative self-talk, it wires those pathways stronger. But when you reframe with evidence, you literally rewire your brain to favor truth over distortion. Every time you catch a negative thought and replace it with evidence, you weaken the old circuit and strengthen a new one. Over time, the reframe voice becomes louder and more natural. What once felt forced becomes automatic. That's how habits of thought are reshaped. The beauty of reframing is that it puts you back in control. Negative self-talk thrives on vagueness. It says, "You're not enough," but it never defines enough. It says, "You'll fail," but it never gives a clear picture of why. Evidence demands specifics. It grounds you. Instead of drowning in vague criticism, you stand on concrete facts. And when you stand on facts, confidence feels solid, not flimsy. Reframing with evidence also has a ripple effect. Once you get good at challenging your own thoughts, you start noticing how others do the same thing to themselves. You'll hear a friend say, "I'm terrible at everything," and you'll think, "That's not true. Look at all she's done." And then you realize, if you can see the truth so clearly for someone else, you can see it for yourself. Confidence becomes not just an inner shift, but a way you influence the people around you. Reframing is not about ignoring reality or pretending everything is perfect. It's about balancing the picture. Negative self-talk paints in black and white, ignoring the shades of gray. Evidence brings in the full color. It allows you to see the truth of your experiences, not just the failures, but the growth, the wins, the resilience. And when you live from that truth, your confidence is not built on fluff. It's built on solid ground. Confidence is often misunderstood. Most people believe it's something you either have or you don't, that it's a personality trait reserved for a lucky few. They imagine confident women wake up every day with a sense of certainty, never second-guessing themselves, never feeling nervous or insecure. But that's not how confidence works. Confidence is not built in your head first. It is built through action. It's not about waiting until you feel ready, because the truth is, you will rarely feel ready. Confidence is created by doing, by taking steps forward, even when your self-talk is telling you not to, even when your stomach is tight with fear, even when your mind is spinning with doubt. The act of doing rewires your brain. Action is the antidote to negative self-talk, and it is the key to unshakable confidence. Think about learning how to ride a bike. As a child, you didn't wake up one morning believing with certainty you could balance on two wheels. You believed you might fall. You were probably scared, but you got on the bike anyway. You wobbled, you fell, and then you tried again. Each time you pushed forward, your brain collected evidence that you could do it. That is how confidence is built, not by sitting on the curb thinking about it, not by analyzing every possible outcome, but by taking the risk, falling, and proving to yourself you could get back up. That same principle applies to everything in adulthood. Negative self-talk thrives on inaction. It tells you to wait. It says, "You don't know enough yet," or "You're not ready," or "If you try, you'll embarrass yourself." And if you listen, you stay stuck. You don't apply for the job, you don't sign up for the class, you don't speak up in the meeting, you don't walk into the room. You think you're protecting yourself from failure, but in reality, you're strengthening the voice of doubt. Every time you don't act, you prove that the voice was right. You make it stronger. The only way to weaken it is to act anyway, to show yourself through experience that you are more capable than that voice suggests. Action does not have to be massive. In fact, confidence is rarely built in giant leaps. It's built in small, consistent steps that compound over time. Imagine a woman who wants to start public speaking, but is terrified of standing on a stage. Her negative self-talk says, "You'll freeze. You'll embarrass yourself. Nobody will listen to you." If she waits until she feels confident enough, she will never start. But if she takes one small action, maybe sharing her thoughts in a small group or volunteering to present to her team, she gathers evidence that she can survive being seen and heard. Then she does it again and again, each time a little bigger. The confidence comes after the action, not before it. The mistake many women make is believing they need to feel confident before they can act. They wait for the inner critic to go away, for the fear to disappear, for the perfect moment when they finally feel ready. That moment never comes. The only way to create readiness is to step into the discomfort, to act while afraid, to let courage carry you through the gap until confidence catches up. That's the secret. Action first. Confidence follows. It's also important to understand that action doesn't mean perfection. Confidence is not the absence of mistakes. It is the resilience to handle them. Every confident woman you've ever admired has failed, stumbled, and doubted herself. What sets her apart is that she kept moving. She acted despite the fear, despite the mistakes, despite the voice in her head. Each action became proof of her strength. Over time, that proof built into a deep trust. I can handle whatever comes. That is unshakable confidence. Not certainty, not perfection, but trust in yourself. Another layer of action is the way it interrupts thought. When you're stuck in self-doubt, your mind spins endlessly, creating worst-case scenarios, magnifying flaws, and convincing you that failure is guaranteed. The fastest way out of that spiral is movement. Take one step, send the email, make the call, walk into the room. Action shifts your state. It pulls you out of overthinking and into doing. And once you're in motion, you realize the fear was louder than the reality. Most of the time, the things you were afraid of don't even happen. But you wouldn't know that if you stayed in your head. Let's make this practical. Say you want to get healthier, but your self-talk says, you'll never stick with it. You failed every time before. If you sit there listening to that voice, you'll stay paralyzed. But if you take action, walk for 10 minutes, prepare one healthy meal, you prove the voice wrong. One action doesn't make you fit overnight, but it's not about the result. It's about teaching yourself, I can do this. I am capable of taking steps. That experience is confidence building, and the more you act, the stronger it gets. This principle applies in careers, relationships, personal growth, everywhere. The job you want won't come to you while you're doubting yourself. You have to act by sending the application, asking for the meeting, pitching your idea. The relationship you want won't appear while you're hiding. You have to act by putting yourself out there, having the conversation, opening up. The personal goal you want won't materialize through daydreaming. You have to act by taking the first step, then the next, and the next. Confidence is not the starting point. It is the reward for showing up. Action also builds momentum. The first step is always the hardest because it's where the resistance is strongest. But once you start, each action creates energy for the next. You begin to prove to yourself that you are someone who follows through, who doesn't let fear dictate her choices. That identity shift is where unshakable confidence begins. You no longer see yourself as the woman who holds back. You see yourself as the woman who acts, and when that becomes your identity, confidence flows naturally. There's another truth about action. It exposes the lies of negative self-talk. For example, your mind might say, if you speak up in this meeting, everyone will think you're stupid. But when you actually speak up, you realize people are listening, nodding, even agreeing with you. The lie is exposed. Or your mind might say, if you try this new project, you'll fail. But when you start, you realize you're learning, adapting, growing. The lie is exposed. Action is the only way to test the truth. Without it, the lies remain unchallenged. Action also requires courage, and courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the decision to move forward, even when fear is present. That's where growth happens. Every time you act courageously, your brain learns that fear is survivable. You realize you can feel afraid and still move. That realization is powerful because it breaks the belief that fear is a stop sign. Instead, fear becomes a green light. It tells you that you're stretching, that you're stepping into growth, that you're building confidence in real time. The more you act, the more you trust yourself. Confidence is not about controlling outcomes. It's about knowing you can handle outcomes, whatever they are. You can't guarantee success in everything you do, but you can guarantee action. You can guarantee effort. And when you show up consistently, you learn that you don't crumble when things go wrong. You learn that you adapt, you pivot, you keep going. That is the deepest form of confidence, self-trust built on a history of action. Action also silences the critic over time. At first, the voice will scream louder the moment you try something new. It will try to scare you back into your comfort zone. But when you act anyway, you weaken its power. You teach it that you're no longer listening. Over time, the voice gets quieter. It may never disappear completely, but it loses control because you've proven, again and again, that you move forward regardless. This is why action is the third key to unshakable confidence. Awareness opens your eyes to the negative patterns. Reframing with evidence dismantles the lies, but action is what cements the shift. It takes what you know in theory and makes it real. Without action, awareness and reframing stay intellectual. With action, they become lived experience. And lived experience is what rewires your brain, reshapes your identity, and builds a foundation of confidence that no criticism, no mistake, and no failure can shake.